Dear friends, today we have a marvelous set of readings woven together with a common element found in both the first reading, or not just both, but all three readings, the first reading, the second reading, and the gospel. But first, I'd like to remind you of something. Recall that the name for the nation of Israel has a double meaning, and it's important. Israel is the name, first of all, given to one of the patriarchs of the Old Testament. Before his name was changed, he went by the name of Jacob. That's right. The story is found in the book of Genesis, chapter 32. The account tells us that through the night he wrestled with God, and he even tore a muscle in the process, after which his name is changed to Israel. The one who wrestles with God is the meaning of the name. Now, remember the Shema, the ancient prayer that Jewish people still pray to this day, and it's quoting sacred scripture. They pray it multiple times throughout the day. How does it go again? Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Basically, when that prayer is prayed, the double meaning of hear, O Israel, is emphasized. Hear, all you who struggle, who wrestle with God day and night. Unfortunately, these days, many of us, many people in the world who are wrestling with God just write it off as perhaps merely the side effects of having tacos the night before. That wrestling is very important. It's important in our daily lives. Now on to the readings. Not only are the readings connected with this common theme of wrestling with God, but the first reading and the gospel are connected with that marvelous literary device, an element that's designed to trouble us, to confound us, to cause us all the more to wrestle with its meaning and to wrestle with God. The literary device is an element, if you will, of misdirection. It causes us to be unsatisfied with the literal level of the story, causing us to dig deeper for its real meaning. The first reading is from the book of Exodus. Yes, it's a historical account of an obscure and bloody battle. But its purpose is not just to remind us of the history of the taking of possession of the promised land. Jewish and Christian scholars agree on this point. The story survived due to its deeper meaning and the wrestle of faith and prayer. In the account, Moses is standing on a hill as any good leader overseeing a battle in his day would. As Israel's commander, he is their king. But as Israel's great lawgiver, he is also their great prophet. But Moses has another important role. He is Israel's great deliverer and shepherd. He is their great high priest. As long as Moses stands with his arms raised to God in prayer, Israel has the upper hand in the battle. But as soon as he lowers his arms, Israel falters in battle. Recognizing this, two Israelites, Aaron and Hur, come to Moses' aid. They roll a large boulder into place for Moses to be seated on, and then they proceed to hold his arms up in prayer. But lest you think that this is some sort of magical gesture, we need to look at what is going on here from an anthropological point of view. Number one, the people of Israel have great confidence in their leader Moses, in his relationship with God, in his prayer with God. Therefore, when those Israelites who are in battle look up at the hill where Moses is and see him praying, their spirits are stirred and the fight goes all the better because of that confidence in that relationship with God. But we mustn't stop there. Number two, Aaron and Hur's names, if you know your Hebrew, have a special meaning, and they're very symbolic. Hur's name in Hebrew has two interesting meanings. It can mean bedrock foundation, but more beautifully, it can mean the hollow in which the hearth fire burns. Therefore, Hur is that young man to whom Israel looks to as the steady man who protects the hearth fire and the heart of Israel. It's a wonderful name. Aaron's name, likewise, has a beautiful meaning. It means exalted or strong one, or mountain of strength. Therefore, Aaron is that young man who is looked up to as the strong one, the strength of Israel, representing all of the strength of Israel. It too is a wonderful name. If my college girlfriend hadn't ended up as a religious woman, a Franciscan woman in New York, and me, a priest in Seattle, and if we had gotten married, if we had two boys, they would have been named probably Aaron and Hur. But let's dig deeper. We can begin to deduce the greater meaning of this whole story. The battle is a metaphor for the community of believers gathered together and the wonderful power that flows from God when the community of the faithful is gathered. Moses represents all those involved in the work of prayer, not just the Pope and bishops and priests of today, but also the Aarons and the Hurs who directly assist the prayer of all of the prayer leaders, ordained and lay people. But we can't leave it there. We're all united in this battle against the dark forces of this world. Yes, they look to Moses and Aaron and Hur, but it takes the whole community of the faithful believers. Each and every one plays an important part in this battle. And remember, we can't forget all those back at Israel's camp who were supporting the warriors, supporting the community. You see, they're all united as one. Likewise, hidden just under the surface of the gospel story today, we find the same message. On the surface, it sounds like it's just about a pesky woman who is getting her way with an unjust judge because she's merely persistent. But Jesus says, pay close attention to what that unjust judge says. What did he say? While it is true that I neither fear God nor respect any human being, because this widow keeps bothering me, I shall deliver a just decision for her, lest she finally come and strike me. The persistence, yes. Prayer, symbolic of prayer. But also there's this theme of unitedness in the battle. How? If we look at the Greek, the last part of that phrase really isn't best translated, lest she come and strike me or punch me, giving me a black eye. It's actually in Greek, lest she give me a black eye. But it doesn't mean literally to punch him. Is this woman going to come up with a fist and punch a judge in the face? Probably not. But can this woman give this judge a black eye another way? If this judge does not render a just decision, what's going to happen? She is connected with the community of believers, those who trust, those who are prayerful, those who are united with God. And she is going to tell them about this unjust judge, and perhaps that he even took a bribe. And what's going to happen to the judge? In this day, he's going to be without a job real quick, and probably without any friends. And he might end up poor and alone. That's a pretty big black eye. My dear brothers and sisters, this is a timely and important and encouraging message for all of us. Like you, in my conversations with parishioners throughout the days, and especially at suppers when we have a little bit more time, I hear your concerns. Every day, I hear of the battle that wages all around us. The forces of Amalek and the unjust judge are overwhelming us. The war in Ukraine, the fragile situation in Taiwan, the aggressions of Russia and China and North Korea, the return of Islamic conservative oppression of women in Afghanistan, the protests in Iran, the continuing unrest in Syria, Nigeria, Sudan, Nicaragua, and other parts of Central America, the melting of the polar ice caps, the flooding in Pakistan and other places in the world, the many areas affected by drought and wildfires here in the United States and in Europe, hurricanes, the ongoing debate around climate change, world politics, world political structures, economics, elected leaders, non-elected leaders, and the trouble with all of them, the transport of immigrants in our nation, and the relationship of all this to local issues like the homeless crisis, substance abuse, mental disease, the decline of morality, and the role of education, and most importantly, the challenge of all of this to the health of the family unit. That's a lot. That's overwhelming. And lately, it feels like the dark forces against God seem to be winning the battle. The dark forces have been masterful of late in dividing us. This is the devil's ancient best trick, to turn us against each other, conservative against liberal, rich against poor, nation against nation, and it's even in the church, isn't it? Bishop against bishop, priest against priest, laity against laity, and it doesn't stop. In response, we all need to recognize that we're called to be one faith community of believers, regardless of our status, our wealth, our gifts, our talents, and be once again joined together in this great battle. And we can't do it alone, in isolation, contrary to what those who are saying against organized religion. That's foolishness. And we can't just water everything down in order to get along with one another. Likewise, that's foolishness. Jesus told us that we would face opposition when we stand up for what is true and right and good. And when we stand up for God, when we stand up for what is true and right and good, there will be people who oppose us. How did Winston Churchill put it? A good Christian man. Never trust the person without enemies. What a wise man. In order to enter into the promised land, Moses and the community and us as the community of believers are called to be joined together with our God in this battle. We need each other. We can't win this battle alone. As Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, Father, I pray that they would be one, as you and I are one. This takes an awful lot of prayer and understanding and humility to surrender to God's will. The community of believers has the potential to be an unstoppable force in bringing the faithful into the promised land, the eternal Jerusalem, the kingdom of God. Contrary to the belief that salvation is just a personal choice, the Catholic Church has always taught that by its nature, it is a community reality, a community choice. No one is saved alone. Therefore, we must be united in this battle. It's time for us to shift our wrestling with one another and wrestling with God to a wrestling along with one another and wrestling with our God. The world is in need of this leadership that we can offer. The world is in need of us to show them the way. My dear brothers and sisters, today the Lord is inviting us to roll a big boulder over to Moses and to have him sit down, and then to have today's Aaron's and hers hold up Moses' arms in prayer so that we can join together and be persistent, united in prayer, and strengthened in spirit, and we can start winning the spiritual battle again and eventually enter the promised land.